6 minutes. That's how long it took for my quiet retirement to turn into a full-blown war with the HOA. One minute I'm holding an official demand for $8,500 like I'm some criminal. And the next I realize their entire HOA empire is literally built on my private land. It was a Saturday morning, the kind I'd earned after 20 years of managing transportation projects for the state coffee steaming laptop, opened me zoning out to city planning documents because apparently I don't know how to relax like a normal person. Then I heard it. Car doors slamming in my driveway. Not a neighbor, not a delivery. Multiple doors, heavy footsteps, that confident rhythm people have when they think they're in charge. I look out the window, and there she is, blonde hair pulled tight, navy blazer clipboard like a weapon. Behind her, 2 people with folders and a man in a uniform that made my stomach twist. It looked official at a glance, but something about it felt like a costume that had been ironed too perfectly. The doorbell rang twice before I even reached it. I opened the door and she stepped forward like she owned my porch. "Mr. Thompson," she said, smiling without warmth. "I'm Vicki Sterling, president of the Riverside Meadows Homeowners Association. This is Officer Davis from Code Enforcement, and these are Tom Bradley and Janet Walsh from the HOA board." I didn't say a word. I just watched her because I've met her type before. The Karen who speaks like the world is her customer service desk and everyone else is late on a payment. She flipped open a document with a city letterhead and started reading like she was on a stage. "You have 24 hours to address critical zoning violations. Remove the vegetable garden immediately. Repaint your home according to approved community colors. Remove the privacy fence. It blocks necessary sight lines for community safety." Then she turned the page and tapped the bottom number twice, slow dramatic. "Total cost for compliance, $8,500. I felt my eyebrows lift before I could stop it. $8,500. For my garden, my paint, and my fence. I looked past her at the officer. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His badge looked faded like it had been printed on a home office printer and left in the sun. And the seal on the paperwork my brain snagged on it was weirdly pixelated. Government documents are usually boring. This one looked like it was trying too hard. So I did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I asked a simple question. "Officer Davis," I said, holding up the paper, "can you explain the specific zoning statute you're citing here?" His mouth opened, then closed. He shifted his weight like a kid caught cheating. I'm just here to deliver the paperwork, sir. The details are in the notice." Vicki's smile twitched. Just a little, like she didn't like that I'd asked the boring question instead of reacting to her big scary number. I kept my voice calm. "I'll verify this with the city planning office." Her tone turned sugary. "Of course. Due diligence is wise. We'll return Monday for your compliance confirmation." Then they left. And the moment the last car door slammed, I called the city planning department. The clerk didn't even put me on hold. "No violations on your property," she said. "No complaints filed. And that badge number you read me, it's not assigned to anyone." I stood there in my kitchen phone still in my hand, feeling that slow burn crawl up my neck. So it wasn't just HOA bullying, it was fraud. A forged document, a fake officer, and a president with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Fine. Monday morning, a real code enforcement inspector showed up. Clipboard, measuring tape, the whole deal. We received an anonymous complaint about an unpermitted structure. He said, nodding toward my shed built 3 years ago, properly permitted, inspected, signed off. He measured, took photos, frowned at his tablet. "The permit's in the system, but the final certificate isn't linked properly. Might be an admin error." 20 minutes later, there was a red tag on my door anyway. 10 business days to verify. Bureaucracy grinding forward like a machine designed to punish you for existing. The next morning, Tuesday, 3 landscapers rolled up along my property line. Before I could even process it, they started hacking into my privacy hedge. 15 feet of mature plants gone in minutes. When I ran outside, the supervisor didn't even flinch. "Work order from Riverside Meadows Professional Services," he said, handing me a card like I was supposed to thank him. "Overgrown vegetation blocking sight lines for community safety." I looked at the shredded greenery, then at him. "That's my hedge." He shrugged. "Questions go through the HOA office." By Wednesday, it wasn't just my property, it was my reputation. A process server showed up at lunch right in front of people I used to work with. Papers in hand, loud voice like my embarrassment was the point. I got a title monitoring alert for a lien attempt flagged before it could hit officially. Certified letters started stacking in my mailbox like somebody was feeding paper into a shredder backward. And the neighborhood shifted. People stopped making eye contact. Parents guided their kids away when my door opened. On the community page, anonymous posts called me Dangerous Stubborn, the problem house. It was subtle enough to deny and loud enough to feel. I wish I could say I stayed calm the whole time. I didn't. There was a night I sat at my kitchen table with a pile of envelopes, the red tag on my door, and the sound of my own breathing, and I thought, maybe I should just pay something. Maybe I should just apologize even if I did nothing wrong, because at least then I could sleep. I stared at my reflection in the dark window and actually wondered if I was the problem. If I was too proud, too stubborn. If this was just what community meant, now pay up, shut up, and don't ask questions. That was the moment I felt myself slipping. Not because they had evidence, but because they had momentum. Then my attorney James Sullivan said something that snapped me back. "They're not trying to win," he told me, voice low. "They're trying to exhaust you." So I decided if they wanted paperwork, I'd give them paperwork, the kind that doesn't blink. I installed cameras. I documented everything: timestamps, photos, recordings, the landscaper card, the forged notice, the red tag, the letters. And I dug into records the way I used to dig into project files when someone tried to cut corners on a highway contract. That's when I hired Mike Anderson, a surveyor who knew the county like the back of his hand. Within days, my kitchen table was buried under maps. Survey stakes popped up along my lawn like little flags marking a battlefield. And then Mike showed me the overlay old subdivision plat versus current assumptions, and my stomach dropped. The Riverside Meadows HOA office building, 75% on my property. The playground, entirely on my property. Utility lines, storm drain access easements they bragged about. Not filed, not recorded, not legal. Decades of community property had been built on somebody else's land. My land. I remember sitting back in my chair staring at the map, feeling two emotions slam into each other, rage and clarity. Because suddenly Vicky's behavior made sense. She wasn't just a Karen drunk on power, she was protecting something fragile, something illegal, something profitable. And I realized something else too. Vicky had been acting like she could take my house apart piece by piece, because she thought I'd never look under the floorboards. That's when I stopped reacting and started moving. A call came from Greenleaf Property Management, the company handling HOA accounts, sounding tired, like they were sick of this HOA drama. They mentioned outstanding debt. They mentioned unpaid fees. They mentioned a number that made my eyebrows rise again: $45,000. Then they asked casually, like it was nothing, "Are you interested in purchasing their outstanding debt?" $25,000, one wire transfer. That's all it took to flip the board. I didn't just become the guy they were bullying anymore. I became their creditor. The HOA that had been threatening liens suddenly had a lien-shaped shadow hanging over them. Vicky didn't know yet, not until the county hearing. Friday afternoon, County Administration Building Room 205. Packed. Residents, shoulder to shoulder, anxious faces, whispers. Vicky walked in like she still owned the air, clutching her folder like it was a shield. 3 attorneys in a tight little formation behind her. She smiled at the crowd like she was counting votes. The commissioner called the hearing to order. Vicky stood up first and gave a performance, public safety, community values, emotional manipulation wrapped in legal-sounding words. She painted me as the selfish landowner threatening 80 families. Then my attorney stood up and laid the deed on the table. Calm, clean, simple. Then Mike stepped forward with the survey maps and that professional tone that makes people stop talking. My comprehensive survey documents extensive unpermitted construction on Mr. Thompson's private property, he said, clicking through overlays that made the room audibly gasp. I watched Vicky's face do something I hadn't seen yet. Fear. Not dramatic fear. Not, "Oh no, the cameras are on me" fear. Real fear. The kind that shows up when someone realizes the ground under them isn't ground. It's a trapdoor. And then it was my turn. I stood up, held up the debt purchase documentation, and kept my voice steady even though my hands wanted to shake. Commissioner, I said, I need the record to reflect that I now hold the HOA's outstanding debt obligations. As their primary creditor, I can demand immediate payment or pursue legal seizure of assets. Vicky's head snapped toward me. Her mouth opened just slightly, like her brain couldn't decide whether to deny it or attack me for saying it out loud. But the paper doesn't care about her expression. Paper is cold. Paper is final. The commissioner asked questions. Officials exchanged looks. The hearing stopped being a neighborhood dispute and turned into something heavier: property rights, regulatory violations, financial wrongdoing. The kind of thing that gets referred. The kind of thing that gets investigated. When the ruling came down, it was blunt. HOA operations suspended, facilities flagged, records seized, criminal referral initiated. Vicky's attorneys leaned in, whispering fast, like they were trying to talk time into existence. It didn't work. Afterward, she approached me in the hallway, close enough that I could smell her perfume layered over panic. Her voice was tight. "You've destroyed everything." I looked at her, really looked, and felt something settle in my chest. Not joy, not victory, just finality. "No," I said quietly. "You did. I just proved it." And I walked away before she could find another script to hide behind. Lesson: when someone builds power on lies, all it takes is the truth properly documented to bring it down.